Hey listeners, Dan Harris here, host of the 10% Happier podcast. Imagine all your audio entertainment available in just one place. That's what the Audible app is all about. With Audible, you can always find the best of what you love or discover something new. Audible has an incredible selection of wellness titles and originals like The Light Podcast by Michelle Obama, Work It Out by Mel Robbins, and Confidence Gap by Russ Harris. Membership includes access to Audible Originals, podcasts, and tons of audiobooks that you can download or stream as much as you want. And as an Audible member, you can choose one title per month from an ever-growing catalog of titles to keep. The Audible app makes it easy to listen anytime, anywhere, whether you're traveling, working out, doing chores, wherever your day takes you. New members can try Audible now free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/Harris or text Harris to 500-500.
The weather is cooling down a bit. The leaves are starting to fall. Yes, it's that time of year again, football season. And we all know the best part of any game day traditions are the ones that involve food. There's nothing like having everyone in your game day crew coming together to bring their best bites and argue over whose family makes the best chili. And while there's no need to mess with the perfection of game day classics, like a freshly grilled Oscar Mayer hot dog topped with Heinz ketchup and mustard, it's always fun to step out of your comfort zone and get creative with your recipes. Because there's nothing more fun than adding to your list of game day traditions, like making a creamy and delectable queso dip with Velveeta cheese that can be eaten with so much more than just chips. Now is the chance for people across the nation to find out whose game day eats reign supreme. It's your turn to show off your tasty game day food traditions. Go to www.gamedayfoodtraditions.com to share a photo of your game day food tradition to enter to win $10,000. Once again, that's www.gamedayfoodtraditions.com to enter to win $10,000.
This is Full Change with Tom Laidlaw.
All right, Tom, today this is a huge show. You guys have a lot of, you have two similarities. You both played defense. Well, three. You're both lefty shots. You both wore the number 2. That's where the similarities end.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Our guest today is a silky smooth skater, a legend, Hall of Famer. Your ex-opponent, we have Mark Howe on today.
Mark, how are you doing, brother? Good to see you again.
Yeah, good seeing you, Tom. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I know I've told the story before, but Larry Plow he used to be the general manager of the Hartford Whalers when Mark was in Hartford. And I got to know Larry pretty well. He got in the agent business, and he was working for the Rangers. And he said to at one point that he almost traded for me for you. It was a 1-for-1 deal. And he said that would have been the worst trade in the National Hockey League history,
Yeah.
which is true.
Yeah, well, like I said, maybe the Rangers wouldn't have liked it. I don't know.
No, Rangers would have loved it.
Yeah, we sure loved it.
Would have loved it.
Where are you living now?
I'm living in New Jersey, in Jackson. So it's kind of right in the middle of the state. It's right off of, anybody knows New Jersey, off 190, just south of 195. Sure. It's a great location for scouting, and I scouted out of here for the majority of the time for like 27 years. I mean, getting to New York, getting to Philly, to Washington, to Hershey, Wilkes-Barre, Bridgeport, all those places. I mean, it's nice because I could get up, get to the game, and I could be in my driveway most nights. And also I've had a place down at the shore since '86.
Mark, that's my question. Where down the shore? Because we have
down along Long Beach Island.
LBI. Oh,
So
beautiful.
you doing the fist pumping? You're down the beach doing the fist pump or what?
No, that's
Actually, it's a great play. I wanted to be down in Cape May when I first got into boating back in '86, and I know the fishing off the Jersey coast is phenomenal offshore, and I wanted to go to the Cape May, but I had 3 kids. They were all young. And at that time, there was nothing for kids to do. It was great for fishing. But as you know, as a player, you're gone so much during the year. And I wanted to be able to spend more time with my kids. And so we ended up, I had some neighbors. I lived in Moorestown, just north of Cherry Hill. And they had places down LBI. They brought me down there, and I went down there one day, and I'm driving down, and they got water slides, they got mini golf, they got they have all sorts of everything for kids to do, and it's still there. So I got into a marina, and we park your car, and everything you do is walk or bike. So I mean, it's a wonderful spot.
Do you know LBI at all, Tom?
No.
Awesome spot on the Jersey Shore.
Really?
And it's not hidden, but it's not as popular as the fist pumping seaside.
Are you down there pumping your fist? You're probably pumping your fist.
I love LBI. It's a great place to be. Great place.
Yeah, it's more to me. It was more family oriented than any other place I'd been to. So that's what I liked about it the best.
Good. So where did you grow up then?
I grew up in Detroit, Michigan.
Right.
Born and raised there in '55, and played all my amateur hockey there. Got away for a couple months. Played on the Olympic team in '72, and then went up to Toronto.
16-year-old, right, Mark? You were like 16?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I got 2 months out of school, so it was great.
Yeah.
And the school was great about it. So I came home. They had a Mark Howe Day, which was
Oh, wow.
surprising enough. Yeah. And then next year, played with the Toronto Marlies. We won the Memorial Cup, and then we got drafted in the WHA. And I hadn't even heard of what the WHA was. I knew there was some other kind of league, but like everybody growing up, my sights were set on the NHL. And but as things turned about, Gordie came out of retirement. Marty, Gordie, and I played together down in Houston, and it was one of the best things I ever did in my life.
That's right. So people that don't know,
does anyone not
yeah.
know?
So Mark's father is Gordie Howe, just Mr. Hockey. That's all. Yeah.
That's a great question, Mark. How, obviously we all have dads, and there's always pressure to live up to your dad's expectations. But how was that for you? Because your dad is Mr. Hockey, like Tom just said.
Actually, that was all handled through with my mother. So back in the day, the fathers were gone a lot because they traveled by train. They couldn't get home. Most of them had to have summer jobs. So Dad used to travel with all across Canada, spend a whole month being gone. But my mom's the one who sat me down, and she said, "Look, you're going to you have this tremendous shadow that you're going to have to try to live up to. And you don't need to do that. You need to know who you are, what your capabilities are, and judge yourself by you. What are your expectations of yourself?" And that really helped me a lot. But unfortunately, I was one of those athletes who I set my bar really, really high. I had I said, "What was your dream?" I said, "Well, to win the MVP and the Stanley Cup in the same year." So,
wow.
Yeah, and those were my expectations. So I wanted to be the best. I knew I wasn't the best, but I wanted to be the best. And so sometimes I'd be a little hard on myself, but I'd rather that than be comfortable. So it just made you push every single day. That I pushed every day till I was 40 years old and I retired.
That's pretty cool that you were able to do that, to have that thought process, right? For me, my dream was just to play in the National Hockey League. And then I was lucky at the end of my career to play with Wayne Gretzky out in L.A. And you could tell that his dream was like yours. Like, he wanted to be the best player to ever play the game, besides your father, obviously. So I thought back about that. I really learned a good lesson, right? Like, do what you did. If you want to have a dream big. If you don't reach it, okay, but this whole process that goes into getting there, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, yeah, and actually, I think it was back in 79, 78, 79, the last year of the WHA, we had a 3-game All-Star series against the Moscow Dynamo. It was the WHA All-Stars, and lo and behold, I was the lowly left winger on the line. Wayne Gretzky was the center, and Gordie Howe was the right winger. So it's the only time I got MVP of the first game, and I got booed because the games were in Edmonton. They wanted Wayne to have it, but it was a tough time. Actually, I was then married, and my father-in-law had just passed away, and so I went for the viewing couple things, and I left so I could attend the All-Star game. That's what players did back in the day.
Yeah.
But what I got out of that, and Wayne, I think, was only 18 or whatever. But he's the only guy I ever played with who wanted to score every single shift.
Yeah.
And people ask me, they say, "Who's the toughest and most competitive guy you ever saw?" And for me, it was Gordie when he wanted to. He did what he had to do. But Wayne Gretzky was phenomenal. I played, like I said, I got to play 3 games with on the line with those 2 guys, and but playing with Wayne, it was really, really special.
Right. So you told us about your mother sitting you down and having that talk. Was your father like that too? Did he sit you down and talk about things?
No, Dad never really said much of nothing. He led by example. He was the kind of guy. So I was on the Little League All-Star team in Detroit as a catcher, and Dad he was a phenomenal athlete. He could have been a pro golfer, could have been a pro baseball player, and he said, "I'll throw you a knuckleball." So he throws me a knuckleball, and I'm going like this. I miss it. It hits me in the nose, and I go down. I got blood coming out. I got water in my eyes. And he just looks and he laughs. He just it was that kind of father. So with my determination, I said, "Throw it again." Oh. He said, "No." I said, "Throw it again." He throws it again, and here it comes. I'm going like this. Boom. Sure enough, it hits me right in the nose again. I get up. I said, "Throw it again." He says, "No, you're really done." So, yeah. And then I know, so my first game in the WHA, we played out in Los Angeles. We won the game. I'm an 18-year-old kid. I'm in LA for the first time, and I'm out after the game and having a good old time. And Dad's there. And Dad let us be kids. He let us be ourselves and learn life through your own lessons and your own life. And that's how both my parents were. The next day we got on a plane about 7 a.m. We flew to Edmonton. We got into the hotel about 3, had a bite to eat, maybe a half-hour nap. And now we're playing against the old Edmonton Oilers from WHA. And here comes Jimmy Harrison at me. And I said, well, I'm going to go right through this guy. Well, next thing I know, I'm on my ass and and my gloves and helmet, everything flew off. And so then we get in the locker room after the period. And I'm laying after I picked myself up. I'm laying there, and my dad knew I was out late. And he looked at me and he goes, "Well, did you learn a lesson?" I said, "Yeah." And that's all he would say. That's the type of guy he was. Right. Very, very seldom did he ever offer unsolicited advice. I mean, right. My parents' doors were always open, and even during my playing career, especially near the end, I used to call Dad and I used to say, "Dad, how do you know when it's time to retire?" I mean, I was in so much pain with my back and in rehab, like 4 times a week, 2 hours a day. And he used to say, "You'll know." And I go, "What do you mean you'll know?" I said, "You can give me something here." But very few words, but his words were meant a lot. And sure. So what it was, I think it was like 2 months after the first time I'd called him. I'm driving home from a Wings game. We did our job. We won convincingly. And I just didn't feel the same. So I called him up at his home in Traverse City, Michigan. I said, "Well, I get it. I understand what you're talking about now." So, very wise. Even though he had only a grade 8 education, a very wise man.
Right. Did he often tell you he was proud of you, or did you have that one moment when you're like, "My dad finally accepted me, for what I'm doing here in his line of work"?
No, I think with me being a parent now, I have 7 grandkids, but. And I was at a function with a real good friend of mine, and his son had an album release, and first one, and I was talking to him, and I said, no matter what we accomplish as ourselves in life, there is nothing near as rewarding as seeing your children, your offspring, succeed, and and so. It didn't take much. So anybody saw that when I got into the Hall of Fame. I mean, the one thing I had to do was, congratulate my father and thank my mother and father, because I obviously wouldn't have been there without them. And so I put on Dad's jersey, and we had a relationship where I don't think we ever told each other we loved you till right near the end of his life. But the admiration was there both ways. And my job as a son was just not to tarnish that name on my back. That's the burden that I carried. It wasn't so much. I'm sure I embarrassed myself a lot. I just did not want to embarrass my parents.
Well, you carried it right to the Hall of Fame, Mark. So you did a good job with it,
Yeah. But that's the hockey end of it's one side. It's not. It's more. Our life has always been far more about family and personal. The hockey happened to be something we did. We're very fortunate. We were, obviously Gordie was born with incredible God-given abilities, and I had some as well. And Marty, I still believe to this day, Marty was a better athlete than me. I just happen to have more passion for hockey and a more burning desire And I think that was probably the difference. But in most sports, especially in high school, Marty is a much better athlete than I was.
We talk about skill that you had and your father had, but you also talk about that passion, right? And I know the skill is part of it, but you have to have that desire like you did to not just be a player, like to be a great player, like to win the MVP and win the Stanley Cup, right? And that, people don't always dream that way.
No, so you like, I was always, bro, I pushed to be the best, and no matter what level. So I remember when I was 12 years old, I got cut from a midget team. And I remember I was in tears. So we had like a 6-game like training camp thing. I was third in scoring in training camp. And the coach sat me down after they cut me. And he said, look, I want you to go back, play one more year of Bantam. He says, you can play 60 minutes a night. Here you're going to be third line. You'll get more out of it. You'll develop quicker going back to Bantam. And his name was Carl Lidstrom. And actually, he was the best coach I ever had. So then the next year, I ended up being on his team. We played junior in Detroit on his team. So wonderful coach. He knew me. He was one of the first coaches I had where everything was one-on-one, and he knew how to. Sometimes I needed a kick in the butt, and sometimes I needed a pat on the back, and he was great at it. So, but you work your way up. So most of everybody that turns pro, you're the best kid on your team. You turn pro. Now you come to training camp and you're like, whoa. Yeah. And then, and then you get sent to the American League. Well, now it's a struggle to find your niche. Where am I going to be? And then you look, perfect example might be a guy like Dougie Gilmore, great junior, turns into pro. It's a struggle. He's a fourth line guy. Took him, I don't know how many years to finally when he gets to Toronto, he's the go-to guy, but it took years to get to that stage. And that's just the burning desire that he has to succeed. And you don't settle. So every day you go to that rink, you do what you got to do to improve.
Well, and that's how you get, we just did an event, we were at Brian Propp's event, and Mark has gigantic legs. I noticed that. And obviously your game, you worked on your skating. Did you try to consciously have a different game than your dad? Because everyone knows your dad was probably the first power forward. He would rough people up. Your game was more of a skating game. Did you do that on purpose?
I could never do what Gordie Howe did. He was a different animal on the ice. Boy, if you crossed him or you did something, and I know as a kid, when he was playing with the Red Wings, I went to games, and once in a while he'd say, well, keep an eye on this player tonight. And I'd be in that rink, and the guy would end up in a pool of blood in the corner of the rink. And he did it. Nobody ever saw it because there was no cameras and everything else. And Gordie had his own way of playing the game. He was 6 foot. He was rock solid farm boy, 208 pounds. Here I was at 185, 190, soaking wet with towels on me. And I played the game different. So I know I dropped my gloves a few times. I got my face all bloody. I said, well, this is stupid. So I said, but it didn't mean I was a pushover. I mean, if somebody's coming to hurt me, well, as you know, Tommy, back in the day, if somebody's coming to finish you through the boards, I'm doing all I can. I'm going to put my stick right through I'm going to take every tooth out of your mouth. And that's how you defended yourself.
The Sherwood Forest. We called it the Sherwood Forest back then.
Oh, yeah. Well, once I got my aluminum stick, then it was like shrapnel.
And the big thing with you was, and there's other players like John Tonelli was like this too, you didn't fight, but the intimidation didn't stop you from doing your job, right? You continued to play through it. You didn't let anybody intimidate you. That's what one of the things I was impressed with you. Real quick, though, with Gordie. So, I mean, he's your father. So when he's out there playing with you and somebody does something to you, I've heard stories of his like going after the guys that go after you. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Right. So, he and Marty. So Marty being the older brother, and even though we used to beat the living tar out of each other, even in practice as kids growing up, they always tried to look after me, but especially Dad. Like if you did something to one of their boys, we had a game in Phoenix years ago, and a guy took a dirty shot and came at me really low, tried to take my knee out, and I got up in the air a little bit, so I went down and hit my head, but it didn't hurt my knee, and so I was out for just a second. I come to, and there's Gordie just pummeling the guy, and there's Marty pummeling over top of him, and so and I know, and I live with the guy, Robbie Fatorik.
Yeah, I know Robbie. Love the guy.
Yeah.
I love Robbie. Yeah.
And and I have a lot of respect for Robbie.
Yeah.
Actually, he took care of me during the Olympics. So I was 16, he was 19.
Right.
He's one of the guys I live with. He led me by the hand, took me all around Sapporo, and
Sure.
but Robbie every once in a while get a stick up. Well, he actually caught Marty in the eye one time.
Uh-oh.
And we let it go, but then he got Marty the second time, and it scratched his, I think it's cornea or retina a little bit. And so Marty had to stay in the hospital in Cincinnati, and we're walking out, and my dad, he mumbled something under his breath. I don't know. And so I just felt bad for Rod. Dad did one of the most vicious things I'd ever seen. Next time we played against each other, and and Dad was upset. He said, I wanted to get him in the eye, and he missed. He hit him across the face and across the nose. I mean, it was nasty. It was nasty. And I like I said, I have a lot of respect for Robbie, but when Dad played, I mean, like you hear a story, like even Wayne Gretzky would tell the story. He said, yeah, when Wayne was with Indianapolis and WHA, and during the, and he knew Gordie Howe, and he went up and he took the puck off and started going the other way. He says, next thing you know, he says, I thought my arm was broke. I'm laying on the ice, and Dad come over. He said, hey, kid, don't ever touch my puck again. Well, I heard the exact same story from Dave Keon. And so because they were that patented hook check, and maybe the greatest leaf of all time.
Yeah.
And Dave said, yeah, I took the puck away, and everybody said, oh, you got to watch it. Gordie's going to get you. He says, I'm not touching Gordie. Believe me, I'm not touching him. And then Davey did it again, and all the guys started sitting away. They said, he's going to get you. We don't know where. We don't know when. We don't know how. It could be on the bench. Could be like whatever. Right. Davey, and they said, he's going to get you for sure. And David said, I guess he wanted to do it again. Dad moved his arms forward. As David leaned a little more forward, made his chin exposed, Dad rifled one of his famous elbows, and he put him into the next day. And he's in the hospital, and all the guys are going, well, we told you. But even Bobby Orr, almost everybody would know. What's strangely odd about it is, and Marty said it best, like if you had people that did that to you when you played against them, or rearranged your face and nasty play, you would hate that SOB for a long time.
Sure. Yeah, never Gordie.
But with Gordie, Marty said people wear those things like a badge of honor.
Yeah,
and that's the difference. And that's kind of what made him so different as a player.
I know coming up, and I thought, I hope Gordie's going to retire before I play that, because I'd heard all these stories about how tough. So I was that defensive, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to try to check him. He's on the other team. But then I heard those kind of stories, and thank God he retired before I got there. So,
Well, do you have any issue? You went to the Flyers and were our Flyer legend, but talk about some of the battles you had with Tom and his Rangers, because Tom, he liked to use his stick in front of the net. In the corners.
Yeah, but I was never near Mark though. He was out of can.
I would get in and out a little quicker. So your biggest battles had to be against Timmy Kerr.
He's a big man.
The big man. Well, I was a nickname, the big man. So and back in the day when guys would train, but one of the things we had to do is bench press our weight at least 10 times. So with Timmy weighed 230.
Right.
So they'd put 230 on the bar. And he'd rattle off a set of 20, piece of cake, and then he'd look. He said, "How many more do you want?"
Yeah.
So he'd just keep going. He'd get the 27, 28. He said, "Okay, that's enough."
He was thank God he's a good guy too.
One of the nicest guys in the world. So, but I do laugh. That's how. But even how Gordie Howe was. So Dad was in the locker room one time, and a couple guys, Timmy being one of them, they said, "Oh, we'd like to meet your dad. We'd like to meet your dad." So I brought him over. So they shook hands, and Dad said, "Timmy, can you do me a favor?" He said, "Sure. What's that?" He said, "Next time your game's on national TV and they're cross-checking you in front of the net, I want you to drop your gloves and smoke the guy."
Oh, wow.
And then now Timmy Kerr, being the nicest guy in the world, is going like, "Why?" He says, "I'm telling you," he said, "you're scoring 40 goals. You'll do that. Do it on national TV so people will see it."
Yeah.
And then he goes, and then like a guy like you, so you're going to go,
yeah.
Oh, hell, here. Oh, this guy. Oh, I got to watch cross-check him because he might smoke me one or two.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my dad told Timmy, he says, if you can get a few people just to hesitate for a split second, he said, guarantee you'll score 10 more goals. Then that's, like I said, that's part of the brilliant. And that's how my dad played the game. Part of it was intimidation. he wanted his space around him. And that little bit of space, well, the game is all about time.
Yeah.
And it just gave you a little more time.
Right. I remember Timmy Kerr, I've got the video too. He came in the garden, he came around the net, was coming to the front of the net, and I got him with a good one. He wasn't ready. And I dropped him right on his ass. He went backwards, and I turned looking and go, oh, God, what's going to happen now? So he had that reputation that, okay, you hit me, now I might just take your teeth out.
He didn't smoke you? He should have smoked you.
No, I think I changed right away. Yeah, I got off the ice.
But Timmy's such a good guy. So I know we were playing a game against the Devils, and with Mike Keenan, every once in a while
here we go.
Yeah.
we would have a fun day. And,
oh, really?
So yeah, well, we had a few of them under Mike. Not all horrible stories.
Right, okay.
But the only you had to play your position. You had to play a different position than what you normally played.
Right.
So Timmy would play defense. Well, he'd back up and he'd take his arm and he'd back up like this with his hand up in the air and his stick. So anyway, we're playing a game of the Devils, and I'm on the bench. Somebody pinched in, so Timmy backed him up. Well, and Timmy could not skate backwards, like one of the few, and he couldn't skate. But he's got his hand up. He's holding his stick. He's looking at the bench, and one of their players went right around and went in and scored. So we get scored against. We're all on the bench. We're dying laughing. And if it was anybody other than Tim Kerr who did that, they would have been shot. So,
yeah.
Mike was there watching. He just like this. But Tim was a fun-loving guy, and so important to that hockey team.
Yeah.
Like, so once you lose at 50, 60 goals, I mean, ask the Islanders about Mike Bossy. Once those goals disappear from a guy, then your sights of the Stanley Cup become far more difficult.
Yep. Mark, what was your relationship with Keenan like? Do you have a good one with him?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, it was kind of a love-hate. So I was brought up in an era that no matter how wrong your coach was, he's right.
Oh.
And that's how my dad grew up. That's what I watched. I watched for years with all the Red Wings. And Mike was really hard on young guys. I think when I got him, I was already 28, 29, 30, whatever the heck I was. And I'd seen a lot. I'd been through a lot more than a lot of the young guys. But he knew how to get into your kitchen and how to rally up. And the thing, I think, if you go back to all the guys that played on our Flyers teams in the mid-'80s, under Mike, we all look at it now that, hey, he helped push us to a new level. Like I said, I pushed myself, and I had my goals set really high. Mike Keenan helped push them a little bit farther. Was it ugly in the process? Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was
so he would get on you. He was still getting on you.
Big time. As a prime example. So we went, and I used to log them in. They kept track of minutes. So I averaged 32 and a half minutes a night every night for 4 years under Mike.
Did you? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, that's half a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little over half. So, but we played a Saturday in, I think, Buffalo, and I played 38 or 39 minutes. Then we went into Boston the next night, and I played 42.
Wow.
And then the next day, and we used to do these conditioning tests periodically or throughout the year, and or have a day off. So we come in the next day, and Mike decided he wants to do a conditioning skate. So we spent it, and we never practiced more than an hour and 15 minutes max. But it was an hour and 15 minutes, no puck, just line up on the boards, and you're back and forth or up or down. Well, meanwhile, I come off averaging 40 minutes 2 nights in a row. You got in at 2 in the morning. Sure. Now you're practicing at 9, so you had the rest of the day off. And I had a history. I had a bad back my whole career. Right. And so now you're going up and down and up and down. And I always tried to lead every drill because I wanted to win every drill. I figured if you do it every day in practice, it just comes natural in the game. And I'm pushing, but halfway through now my back is starting to seize. So now I'm going from first to now I'm last, and I'm sitting, and it's a struggle, and my back's killing me. And when your back goes, you lose all the power in your legs. Yep. And so, and I'm trying to push, but you don't quit. You just don't quit. Yeah. And Mike would come up, and he goes, "Oh, this is too hard. Why don't you just go in the locker room? This is too hard. You're too good. You don't need to do this."
Oh, wow.
So I'd be extreme sarcasm. And there's, I had another time where I think we had all these new guys come in, and or it might have been the second year we had other new guys. Mike come in before the game. He says, after the first period, I'm going to rip into you. And I'm going, why? He says, well, he goes, I want these young guys to go, oh, my God, if he does this to Mark Howe, what's he going to do to me?
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, Mike, whatever you got to do. Well, we play the first period. We're playing Edmonton. And so it's probably 86. But halfway through the first period, he benches me. He quit playing me. So now I'm ticked off anyway.
Yeah.
And then he comes in and he got so far into me, and they just redid all the partitions and everything in the washroom. The sinks, I busted everything. He was really good at getting people wound up. And I come out, and that's the thing Mike did. But then, like I said earlier in the show, every once in a while I'd get down on myself just because I wanted to do so good. And if things weren't going good, and so it's really detrimental to you. We were in LA one time, coming out of the LAX Marriott and waiting to get on the shuttles to go to the rink. And Mike come over and he grabbed me. He goes, hey, you, get your head out of your ass. He goes, you're one of the top 3 defensemen in the National Hockey League. Forget all the crap. Go out and start playing. Yeah, wow. And to get a pat on the back from Mike Keenan like that was a relationship I had. So, is Mike my best friend? No. Yeah. Do I still have some respect for the guy? Yes, I do. Yeah. Every once in a while, there's some things I didn't agree with. He would go over the line. He'd get into people's personal lives when berating a player. That's over the line. You can tell me I'm a horseshit hockey player. You can tell me I stink, I suck, I'm no good. You're sending me to the minors, do whatever, but don't tell me I'm not a good father. I'm not a good husband.
Well, he'd take it to that level, Mark?
Not with me. He did that with a couple guys, but when you're a really tight-knit group of guys, when you hear that with one guy, it affects everybody. Everybody cared about everybody, and that it didn't happen very often. But that was, I think, if Mike could maybe take anything back, that might be it. But like I said, that was a very, very rare case. But he like I said, back in the day when you put a key in the ignition, I said every day I put my key in the ignition, I had no idea what the hell was going to happen. and it was every day. It was every day of practice. It could be a fun day. It could be like, oh God, what the hell did I get into?
And that was by design. That was by design too, don't you think? Like he wanted it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, without a doubt. And so, I mean, you look, the Rangers. I mean, I was with those guys after we played the outdoor game.
Tom was there.
Let me ask you a question. There were those years where you're playing like 40 minutes. Didn't you get like plus 80 some of those years?
Yeah. Like Brad McCrimmon and I, the 1 year. Well, it's like depends on the guys upstairs how they mark it, whether it's a plus or minus and this and that. But I think I was 85. Brad was 83. I know we played 3 years together. We were plus 190 roughly each.
That's incredible.
What a great pair.
Yeah. I think the best I ever had. I had plus 30 1 year, and I was pretty excited about that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. So the 1 year, so I was plus 85. I think I had 82 points, and I didn't win the Norris, but that's because
who won
Paul Coffey broke Bobby Orr's record that year, and I said, well, so I mean, I had 3 good shots at it of winning the Norris, but I know the first one, I cut my kidney and I missed a while, and anybody's had a lacerated kidney, it takes you down for a while. It's not something you just you feel great about. But anyway, so like everybody was upset that I didn't get it, and Rod Langway had won it that year, and I looked at it, and I still mean it to this day that I said, well, who meant more to their team? And that was my first year with the Flyers. I go, Rod Langway did a lot for that team. I guess he did more for that team than I did for the Flyers. So if I'm doing the voting, I would have voted for Rod Langway too.
Do you know what Mark Howe is also famous for? Changing the nets.
Yes. It's a great, Mark, you can talk about this a little bit, because I was watching a highlight with my son the other day, who's 8, and he's like, Dad, how come the nets don't look like bees anymore? I said, well, because Mark Howe, actually.
Yeah.
See if you can find that video anywhere. Nobody can find it. It's been
I remember watching it.
Yeah, it's been eliminated from the internet. And so we were playing against the Islanders. We had a 3-on-2 against. The puck went wide. And I think it was Trottier winning. And there was a guy in the slot, and John Tonelli's driving the net. So I pivoted to be between the two guys to defend with my stick either way. and John Tonelli, who I was line mates with down in Houston. And so John, incidental contact, bumped into me, and I went down. It was right about the hash marks, but you're skating full speed, so you're doing some 20 miles an hour. And I'm going right into the middle of the net. And I put my feet up to absorb the shock with my knees, so that my back wouldn't have the impact. You know how quick, split second everything is. Yeah. And what happened? But the net came up, and where here we go, where that point used to be. It went in. It went into my buttocks area. It went in a little over 5 inches.
Oh.
It was about 5 inches wide. It scraped my rectal wall. And so, and I was screaming. I thought I knew if went in far, and I thought I'd punctured my intestines, whatever. I thought I was dying. Oh. And I said, what I remember the most was I'm screaming at the trainer just to cut my pants off, because I do something. I'm in major panic mode. And I looked up, and Nick Fatia was a teammate. Nick's looking at me, and his eyeballs are about this big. And I'm going, oh, no. And I'm just screaming some more. And then they get me in the locker room while my dad was working with the Whalers off ice. So he was at the game. And I ended up losing like 4.5 pints of blood. Ooh. So I lost a little over half my blood. And so I'm in the locker room, and I'm just screaming at the doctor, am I going to die? Am I going to die? And he's sitting there, he's playing with my toes. And I'm screaming out, like, why are you playing with my toes? What do you do something? I'm dying here. And then my dad came down from upstairs, and Dad grabbed my hand, and they had a couple towels stuffed in the hole. And my dad said, I want to see it. And the doc said, no, I don't really think you should. He said, this is my boy. I want to see it. And I've never seen my dad scared of anything. And they took the towel away. And next thing you know, I didn't have any pain in my rear end. I had a pain in my hand because he squeezed so damn hard. And then so in my head, I'm going, oh my God, I really am in bad shape. But then I guess thankfully I'd lost enough blood where shock set in, and the pain all went away. Wow. And then and it was a long process. So the night I played, I weighed in. I was 192 pounds. I always played at 190 something. I never ever played again over 186. So, but right after that, then and I had to have it lacerated and cut open again. What they did, there's about a 5-inch gash at the widest part, so they sew most of it up. They leave a little bit open, so hopefully it would drain. But it healed. It got infected, so then they cut it because it almost went through to my cheek. So then they just went through the outside. They cut that open, and they got all the poison and pus out of me. And so then I started feeling better. So, but I was down to 169 pounds, 170. But I set Mike Rogers got hurt about the same time. Mike was very important to the team. Yeah. We were in 8th place overall. 6 weeks later, we're in 18th. Wow. So I'm trying to get back in the lineup. I want to play. I was 172 pounds. I was weak as a noodle. I was no good, but I set my sights. I said, I had a chance to play my first NHL All-Star game out in LA. I said, I'm going to play in that. So I played in one game prior. So we went to Philadelphia. And the coaches said, look, we'll just play you about 10 minutes. We'll put you on the power play. A couple times. I said, great. Well, we're playing in Philly with the Broad Street Bullies. Well, all of a sudden, the shifts went from 1 minute and 15 seconds on most guys down to about 10. And I ended up playing 28 minutes. And I like I said, that injury kind of precipitated my fallout with the Hartford Whalers. So,
why is that? How'd that happen?
Well, so I got through that year. Like I said, I played at 192, and then I always used to be in my workouts about the middle of June, 1st July back in the day. And so I started working out. Well, then I got a call to go to the Canada Cup maybe a week before. And I'm down in Florida, and I'd only been working out for maybe 2-3 weeks. Right. And I said, okay, I called. So I drove back to Hartford, grabbed my gear, flew to Minnesota. They put me on left wing. I don't want to be there. I'm no good. I'm weak as a noodle. I still needed 6 more weeks of training. Well, we go through that. And when you start playing games, your training part's over with. Yeah. And then I get to Hartford, and I was bad. I know I was bad. But, I got called in for a meeting, and They said, well, we know you've made so much money. You're comfortable with what you've done. And, if you'd like to retire. And that was their way of trying to motivate me.
Wow.
And I go, well, what planet are you guys on? What are you talking about? Like, I'm working to get better. And it wasn't until probably the last month of the season. And I told my dad, I said, look, I want to get traded. I want out of here. These people don't want me. It's the first time I played somewhere people didn't want me.
Wow.
And I didn't like the situation. You end up playing for yourself and not for the team. And I said, I'm highly motivated. My dad said, look, you just go out and play good hockey. People will watch you. People will want you.
Sure.
And then you almost got traded for this blockhead.
And actually, I didn't know trade contracts. So I put my list in. I said the Rangers, the Islanders, the Flyers, or the Devils. Those were the 4 teams. I said, I want to go to any one of those 4 teams. Boston. So I called Harry Sinnott. I said, Harry, I gave him the magic where I said, I'll take a cut and pay to come play for your team.
Wow.
And then, so Harry pushed hard. He said, look, they want 3 first-round draft picks for you. He said, you're not getting traded to the rivals. And I said, well, thanks for trying, Harry. And so there's the two New York teams and the Flyers. And then they came back and they said, we're not trading you. I said, oh, you're going to trade me because I'm going to badmouth this organization. Every person that comes into this, I was doing whatever I could. I was being nasty. And,
who was the GM at the time? Was Larry Plow the GM?
Yeah, Larry was the GM. So, people do that. I hold no grudges. I wasn't happy about it. I'm sure he wasn't happy about it. And things happen in the game. Larry was a teammate of mine. He was a good guy, and just things went awry. But in the end, it ended up being a blessing. So I went to a team that it was all about team. The philosophy that I grew up with and what I believed in was exactly what the Flyers were. And it was all about team and never about individual stats. Right. And the other part was, plus when I played in Hartford, people tried taking runs at me probably 10, 15 times a game. They just couldn't catch me. Yeah. And I said, when I got to Philly, my first training camp, my partner was Glenn Cochran. Oh. And so a week later, they said, okay, you and Glenn play together. Mark, you go play hockey. They looked at Glenn. They goes, anybody touches him, you kill him. So,
and he did, too. He did.
Big tune. Yeah, well, and I got to give him a shout-out. I know most people don't know. Glenn right now is fighting a battle with leukemia. And he's one of the guys. To me, the nicest guys out of this game are the guys that were the toughest guys. And he's one of the toughest SOBs and one of the greatest people I know. So I shout out for him, but actually he was a great partner. Because he was plus 40. Everybody says, man, you're really good. You had Glenn Cochran be plus 40. I said, no. I said, we got chemistry. That's all it is. We had chemistry together. Glenn would say, you go. And he said, I'll back you up. And he said, I'll take care. I said, no, I will be back on defense by the time they hit the red line. And if I'm not, you come kick my butt. That's my bow to you.
That's cool.
But then I do remember one of the first games we were playing down in L.A., and I sucked the guy in to think he could get me. And I got him to bite to come off the far post, and the center came across. All I did was put on the brakes. I took off the other way, and I'm leading a 5-on-3 rush. And this guy, the right winger, just took this vicious run at me, hit the glass. And as I'm leading the rush, here comes Glenn Cochran the other way. And Glenn always took his equipment off. And Glenn's just shoulder pads and everything are flying. He's chasing this guy around the rink, and the guy's going, I didn't hit him. I missed it. I didn't hit him. I missed it. And I'm sitting there, and I saw the whistle blows, and Glenn gets a penalty. I'm sitting in the bench. I'm laughing. I go, wow, is this a lot different than Hartford?
Yeah.
So, it made the game a little more fun.
Did you hate the Rangers, though? Because a lot of Flyers say back then they did. Did you hate Tom and his Rangers?
No, I didn't hate the Rangers. I hated losing to the Rangers. Yeah. To be more specific, I know, a couple of times in the playoffs, they had our number.
Yeah.
One year, Johnny Van Beezer got really hot, and another year, like my first year, I was still learning, because realize I only played defense for basically a year and a half in Hartford, maybe 2 years, and then because I lost all that time with my injury, and that's when I first started playing defense. So I got to Philly. I'm only in year 3 of playing defense.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, how did that happen? Yeah. How'd you make that switch, or what prompted that besides the injury?
Well, when the leagues merged. When you're playing forward, it's really difficult to be effective and play more than 24 minutes a night. So they put me on defense where I could play 30 minutes a night, and I could skate all day. I was lucky I could skate all day, but you could control the game more as a defenseman than you can as a winger.
Yeah.
Is that right, Tom?
So
Mark could control the game. I didn't control the game.
So, but you control the pace of the game. If you wanted up tempo, I made it up tempo. If I wanted to draw it out and suck the team in, create gaps, you could do that. And it all depended on the situation of the game and what was going on. But yeah, so I was just learning how to play defense. And I think in my first year, 82, the Rangers beat us. And to this day, I remember it was game 3. It was a tie game. Glenn and I were backing up, and I just came too far to the middle of the rink. And the pass one wide, guy went in, shot, scored the game winner. Those are the things you don't forget. I don't remember all the good things, but I do remember the bad things. And so they ended up bringing Eddie Van Imp on the ice to work with the defense. And Eddie looked at me, he said, "Well, you're a runner-up for the Norris. Like, what am I going to teach you?" And Eddie was one of the toughest SOBs that ever played the game. And he goes, like, look at your skill set. And I said, "Eddie, nobody's ever taught me anything about how to play defense." So he taught me how he played the game in his mind. And it was all about positioning and angles and knowing your opponents, knowing your own players. And he had me think the game a little different. So now instead of having to use my speed to catch up because I made a mistake, now I'm in the right position. So now you have your energy and the wherewithal to, now you can break up plays. Now you have all that energy to go on offense and do a quick hit. So he structurally really helped my game a lot.
Yeah. How many years did you play in Philly?
10 years. So
seven in Hartford?
I played 4 years in Houston. I had 5 years in Hartford. 3 of them were in the NHL. Right. Then 10 in Philly, and I finished my last 3 in Detroit. And the hard part about Philly, so I think I herniated a disc. Actually, it was at the LAX. LAX caused me a lot of problems. The Marriott there, we were doing some weight training on an off day, and I was doing some weights above my head, and something popped in my back. And my back had been bad, like I said, for years. And I finally herniated the disc, but they couldn't find it. I spent 1.5 years before they finally found it, and then they operated on it. It took me a while because then I re-injured it again. And fortunately, I was able to play another 5-6 years, but I almost missed about 1.5 years of games in my stint in Philly. How many
times did you go to the finals?
I went to the finals 3 times. So twice with Philly, 85, 87. 87 was the closest shot. I mean, it was a great series with Edmonton, and they come on in Game 7. They played like the champs. Who were Ron Hextall, who won the MVP of the series. Yeah. Was absolutely superb. Or the score might have been a little more out of reach, but and then my last year with Detroit, and even though I was relegated to the Black Aces, and that was a team that was probably the most talented team I'd ever been on.
Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, with Eisenman and Fedorov and the list, and Konstantinov was just starting to come, and Nick Lidstrom was just starting to come. Paul Coffey won Norris that year. He was great that year. Yeah, there was a lot of good players on that hockey club and Hall of Famers, but they were still in the process of learning what it was to win. And the Devils
smothered you.
Yeah, they come in Game 1 while we changed. I don't know why. We played one way all year long, and they tried to change how we played Game 1 against the Devils, and it backfired. Then we went back to trying to play the game that we played. And they won a close game in Game 2, and so you go there, you're down 2. So I played the first 2 games. Then Mike Ramsey got healthy again. Mike Ramsey got back in, and I ended up watching from upstairs. And but
how was that for you after the career you had, sitting upstairs watching?
Oh, it was tough to take. But like I say, I've always prided myself in being a team player. I mean, ironically, the funny side of this story is, like I said, you say everybody in the world knows Gordie Howe. The first game of the playoffs, I'm out for warm-up. I come off, I ride the bike, and after the bike, I come out, and I'm with my dad. I said, I can't sit in the stands with you. I said, we're going to go find a place. And I knew a guy that had a car dealership, and they owned a suite. He said, Mark, if you ever want to come up here, you come stay with us. I said, great. So I grabbed my dad. We go up to the suite. I knock on the door. So I said, is Dave here? And they said, no. Was anybody from the car dealership here? And they said, no. And I'm saying, Dad's right next to me. And the guy's going, can I help you? And I said, well, yeah. He said, no, these guys, what they did, I think it cost them $35,000 a year for the suite back in the day. And they got $30,000 for the game. So they leased it out for the game. So it was a private group. And so I said, oh, okay. So I grabbed that. We went up to the press box, went sat somewhere else. And after the game, so the media's interviewing me, and they said, well, what was it hard to take? And it's tough. I said, no, I'm a black ace. My job is to be ready. I was focused on my job, what I had to do to help the team. But I said, I got a great story. I said, I finally met somebody in Detroit that did not know Gordie Howe.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's funny. It kind of made it a little easier for me to swallow.
Here's these guys that paid $30,000 for the suite, and they could have had Gordie and Mark Howe sitting with him in the suite, right?
Well, that's funny. They could have had Gordie Howe in their suite. So
no, you're up there too. So when you look back at your career, any regrets?
No, well, not really. Everything's easier hindsight. I didn't win a Stanley Cup. I mean, I grew up wanting to win a Stanley. Other than that, no, I can't really say. I mean, there's a couple things. I wish I never had a bad back. I mean, the laundry list of injuries I had from being a smaller player, especially when you start slowing down a half step, now the people can get you. Broke my ribs 4 separate times. I separated my shoulders 3 times. I've had probably 6 or 7 concussions.
Yeah.
Had my back surgery, had my knee operated on, broke my thumb. I had that major injury in Hartford. But to this day, I feel my back issues affected me much more negatively than the adversity of the injury in Hartford. So, but that's part of, I think, what made me who I was. You persevere and nothing gets you down and you keep moving forward. But no, I really don't regret. I just, I wish I'd won a Stanley Cup, but I do not hang my head about that at all. So I know I gave it my best, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, and you wound up in the Hall of Fame in Toronto, so that's pretty good, icing on the cake.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like I never really expected to get in the Hall of Fame, and I'm honest. I tell it all people all the time. They don't believe it. I said I really don't think I should be in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think there should be a few other people.
You don't think you should be in the Hall of Fame? Hold on.
Yeah.
You don't?
Yeah, no, because I held myself to a high standard.
Right.
The Hall of Fame is for the Gretzkys, the Messiers, the Lemieux, the Jean Beliveau, the Gordie Howes, the Bobby. I mean,
the Mark Howe.
I'm not in that category. Like I'm not no matter what.
You're being very humble.
Yeah. Here's a newsflash for you. I don't think that's true.
No. But I know one of the reasons I got in. I know when Mike Emmerich, Doc was great. Doc used to be on the election committee, and Doc used to call me. He says, "I'm trying to get you in, but." He said, a bunch of the old cronies on the list, he goes, they don't like people that went to the WHA. I said, I didn't go there. I said, I was in the WHA. I came to the NHL. And they didn't like some of that. And so they didn't want to consider those stats. So, I mean, I had, 700 and some odd points in the NHL, but I had another 500 and something in WHA.
Mark, anybody who watched you just as the eye test, you're a Hall of Famer. I mean, you're being very humble.
And what people don't understand too is it's a hockey Hall of Fame. It's not the NHL Hall of Fame. So it's all the statistics. Guys from Europe, wherever they're playing, all those numbers count, right? So.
Oh yeah, I have to. I go back to in '72, and Robbie Fedoruk says you got to come with me. You got to go see the Russians play. I watched them play the Swedes. It was a 3-3 game, the first game, and I said, oh my God, because I'd never seen international competition before.
Right.
I said, I watched Harlamov. He had the puck in the corner. It was about 5 feet in the air, and a guy's cross-checking him from behind. He bounced it in the air the whole way, went behind the net, came around the other side, and swatted it in the net. I mean, if they want a YouTube highlight, dig up that one. I'm going, there's nobody in the NHL can do that.
Right.
And then they had the first Canada Cup, and which was an incredible series. And everybody said, oh, Canada's just going to wipe them out. And I told my dad, I said, I think Canada's going to win. But I said, it's going to be difficult. I said, these guys are really good. And Sweden was just as good. And the Czechs were good. I mean, Finland wasn't quite at the level that these other guys were, but they were really good. And it was a laundry list of guys. But that wasn't exposed to anybody here in North America back in '72. So, yeah, and I'm so again, like I said, some of the Russians I played with, some of the Russians I work with in Detroit, Lariana. Yeah. For me, Slava Fetisov, I think, was one of the best defensemen in the world for at least a 5-year period. Phenomenal player. So, and I was so happy. The last 2 games I played in Detroit regular season, Slava was my partner.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he was 39, I was 40. So the big bear. But like you said, you play with Gretzky. I remember, and I always enjoyed sitting, being teammates with great players, just to meet the people, see what made them different. And Slava's one of those guys.
Yeah. Well, the other guy, too, I was very lucky. Another defenseman like yourself, Larry Robinson, was the same way. I got to play with him at the end of my career, too. And just a great person, fun guy, like a little kid out there. I love playing the game still.
So just what I got to say about Larry Robinson, I'll give you one more story.
Yep.
And here's Larry Robinson, the guy. So we were at the All-Star game in Hartford, and my dad was the honorary captain. So he picked my son, Travis, who was about 6 years old at the time, to skate. And so now they're doing the team picture. Gordie's in the picture. I'm in the picture. My son, Travis, is standing on the back of the room. Larry Robinson was captain of our team. Larry stood up. He said, hold everything. He said, Travis, get over here. You got to get in this picture with your grandpa and your dad. Yeah. So that Larry,
that's it. Yep.
To me, that's him as a person. One of the all-time greatest defensemen. To me, he's obviously, I think, in the top 5.
Yep.
And but as a person, he's definitely in the top 5 with that as well. And I respect that as much as anything.
Yeah, totally. Well, listen, we really didn't get to know each other until like probably last weekend or 2 weekends ago when we met and played against each other a lot. I've got a ton of respect for you as a person. I know you talk about your father a lot, and he's a fantastic man, but you've had your own life, your own career, and you should be very proud of yourself. So thank you very much for coming in here on the show.
No, thanks, Tom. Yeah. So hopefully we can do some more things. So, even though we used to live about 300 yards apart in Detroit,
right.
You were in the agent business, and I was still trying to lumber around on the rink. But no, it's been a pleasure. And I always respected your game and the way you played. And
thank you.
Like I said, there's every once in a while your kids say, "Oh, this guy's no good, that guy's no good." I go, "Look there's 600 back in the day." I said, "There's 600 players that play in the NHL." I said, "You're getting probably 590 of the best players in the world. So as much as you don't like them, you better respect them all." And that's one thing. My dad he didn't show it, but I know he respected all his peers, and I do as well.
All right, Tom. So we had the NHL's best, according to my buddy Brian Noble. Mark Howe was on, and we talked about it. His legacy to live up to Gordie Howe. I mean, he did it.
Yeah. Very interesting. The first time I really talked to him about his career is interesting how he really pushed himself to be better, right? But a lot of guys don't talk like that. Quite a sense of humor, too. He was pretty funny. He told some good stories.
Your goal was just to basically stay on the team, right? Not get cut.
Well, I talk about that a lot. It's true. When I was coming up, I just wanted to play in the National Hockey League. So when it happened, I was like, okay, I've done it.
That's it. Done.
Yeah.
Check, please.
I hope I still kept pushing myself, but not to the level that he talked about. So that was
no, but just think about it. It's got to be impossible to have that over your head that Gordie Howe was your dad. Yeah. And yet he said Gordie Howe was great with him, and he had these goals, and he made the Hall of Fame. Guy's a Hall of Fame.
And that was interesting when we talked about the Hall of Fame. He generally did not think he belonged in the Hall of Fame.
Are you kidding?
And he was really honest about that, too. That wasn't him being Hall.
The guy's a Hall of Fame. No doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah. His numbers, like you said, it is a Hockey Hall of Fame. It's not an NHL Hall of Fame. So he had those years in the WHA where he had a lot of points as well.
But even still, the guy was racking up 90 on plus minus. Like, who does that?
It was interesting to talk. I didn't realize that he played like 40 minutes a game in some places. Like that's uncalled for.
What was like your best year?
Maybe 25 tops. 25, but that still was a lot. And then I playing back-to-back games doing that. Like I remember being more tired if I had a game where it was 25, 26 minutes and then playing the next game. But he had times where he's talking like 40 minutes, 40, 42 the next.
40 minutes.
And he was skating too, like he wasn't standing still like I was. So
well, like I said, you tell me all the time what incredible shape you're in and how you're this specimen of a man. But
thank you.
We saw Mark at the Brian Prop charity event, and that stood out to me is his legs were tree trunks.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I'm 65, and he's what 67? Is that what?
Yeah.
Right. Good man. That was a great interview. He was fantastic. Yep.
Awesome show. Oh, and for people listening to our show, please like and subscribe, and if kind enough to leave us a review, that would help. Thanks so much.
All right, Grasshoppers, thank you for listening. We had a fantastic show. We'll see you next time.